this over. Okay, well, welcome everyone to our session. Hi, Mark. Good to see you. So this is about setting up your first semester or first quarter, if you're at Skyward, grade books. So we're going to talk about both Skyward and Canvas, and we'll talk about which ones are required, which ones are not. And I'm going to lead this session. My name's Mara Velasic. I work at Mount Lake Terrace High School and Scriber Lake High School. And then Dawn is here too. Dawn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am also an instructional technology coach. I'm at Linwood High School and e-learning. And last year I was at Meadowdale, Ohio, Meadowdale folks. And yeah.
Cool. Okay, I put the slides in the chat. And Dawn, if you can put them in again, maybe for the people that joined a little late, that'd be awesome. And we're going to start with a land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Snohomish people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes, who since time immemorial have hunted, fished, gathered, and taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and we honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. By acknowledging these homelands, we commit to working with tribal nations to further the education aims they have identified in our classrooms and schools. Okay, the slides today are really like a resource for you to refer back to. So we've kind of divided them in 3 chunks. We're going to talk about Skyward, which is required. We'll talk about the Canvas gradebook, which is optional. And then we'll talk about syncing grades from Canvas to Skyward. I'm sorry, from Skyward to Canvas, which is also optional. But if you want to continue doing that or start doing that, we'll go over the directions for that. In these slides, each of these are hyperlinks to that section of the slides. So after this session, if you want to refer back, you can go directly to that section to continue setting up your grade books. It is a lot of information for one session, so we'll go slow. But it will take probably a little bit of follow-up time for you to just make sure that all of your grade books are ready to go. The good news is we only have to do this once at the beginning of the semester or quarter if you're at Scriber to make sure everything's set up correctly. And if you don't remember how to do it from last year, don't worry, you only do it twice a year, so that's why we're here. Okay, so we're going to start with Skyward. These are required steps that we need to do in each of our Skyward grade books to ensure that students and families can see your grades and that your grade book is set up as you want it to be for the semester or the quarter. Our recommendation is that you do all 3 steps in one grade book, move on to the next grade book, do all 3 steps, and just go in order of your classes so that you don't miss any, and then you'll be done with those. So what we're going to do first is set post to family and student access display. This allows students and families to see any grades that you put in Skyward on their access. Then we'll make sure your gradebook categories are set as you'd like them. And then we'll just check your grading scale to make sure that the scale you're using is the scale that you want to have. Okay, so if you would like to open up Skyward, you are welcome to do that and follow these steps for a grade book. We probably won't have time for you to go through all your grade books and do these steps, but so that you can follow along and see where these things are in your Skyward grade book. And I don't actually have access to a Skyward grade book, so I'm just going to refer to the screenshots in the slide, but it should look very similar to your access. So you're in Skyward, you're looking at your teacher access, and we're going to My Grade Books. And I would just start with your first grade book on the list. That's a current grade book. And we'll start with the default settings. And I'll give you a minute to get there. And if there's any questions so far, feel free to put those in the chat. And we'll be monitoring that too. And I see Susie and Mark. Are you in a grade book? Do you need another minute or so? Okay, we're good? Cool. So in your grade book, you're clicking on display options on your grade book settings, and we're going to click assignment displays. assignment display. So display option, assignment display. Once we get there, we're looking for this second section that says assignment defaults. And we want to change the post to family access default and the post to student access default. We want to change both of those drop-down menus to say yes. What this does is it guarantees that any assignment we post in Skyward will be visible under the student access and the family access to see. We do that once for each gradebook, and we're setting it up for the whole gradebook. We're saying every assignment going forward, we want to be visible on student and family access. Once you've changed those two drop-downs to yes, then we click save. There were some questions in the past. Why can't we set this as the default? And Skyward, I asked the Skyward team, and they said that previously this has been a setting that teachers wanted to be able to create future assignments that are not visible yet to student and family access. If that is something that you want, what that would mean is you do this for every assignment. You would make sure these are set. If you don't want to do that for every assignment, we set it up now at the beginning of the gradebook, and then it's ready to go for the whole semester. Okay, we need to do this for each of our courses. It's important to do it at the beginning of the year, because if we don't do it at the beginning of the year, if you already have assignments in your gradebook, then we have to also open each of those assignments and set the display access for those. So hopefully your gradebook is still pretty empty, and we're setting this up for the whole year, or I'm sorry, the whole semester. Okay, the second thing we're going to do is we're going to back out of that, and we're going to go back to our gradebook, and we're going to click categories. If you open your categories and you see something similar to this image here, where I've got assignments, culminating, major assignment, and then I have percentages next to it, this means that my default for this gradebook has these default categories, and it's weighted with these default weights. So it is up to your professional discretion how you set up your categories. If you want weighted categories, you can have them. If you don't want them, we have to remove them. So if you see weights or no weights and you want to switch, we click this change score method button, and that will allow us to use total points to calculate grades or base grades on percentages. Yeah, Susie, I'm still in Skyward. So I'm in my gradebook, that same gradebook we were in, and I clicked categories at the top of my gradebook. So we're on step 2 for Skyward, which is checking our categories. If you see percentages here and you want to remove them, click change score method and we'll select total points. If you don't see percentages and you want them, we click change score method and we use base grades on percentages assigned to categories. We want to make that change first because then it's easier to change our actual categories. Okay. One thing that's, well, we'll talk about that in just a minute, actually. So I have either added or removed my percentages, and now I'm going to actually update the categories that are showing. Skyward sometimes just gives you a default list of categories that can be random. So you want to make sure what's listed there is what you actually want. And there's a button on the right-hand side that says add edit categories. And that will give you the whole giant list of categories that are available to choose from. There's tons of options. Our recommendation is to limit them to the ones that really apply to your class. And the fewer the categories, the better, because they will all show under student and family access, whether or not you put assignments in them. So it's okay. You can always remove extra categories that you have, but the fewer you have, the easier it is for students to understand what their grade really means. If you do not use categories, you can also just have the category called assignments. So we need at least one category in here. And our recommendation is just the ASN or assignments category. It's that bright green one. Especially if you're choosing to sync grades from Canvas, we need at least that one category in your gradebook. So again, it's up to your professional discretion, how you set up categories, what you use, but we need at least this one in our gradebook called assignments. Okay, questions about categories? So we posted to student and family access. We just looked at categories. So we're on step 2 in this grade book. No? Okay. Once you've created your categories for your class, this is a horrible example in the picture. I really should update these screenshots, but once you've created the categories for your class, you can click this button that says use these categories for my other classes. If your other Skyward classes are using the same score method, like they're all set up as total points, if you have total points, or they're all set up as weighted categories, it will let you select your other classes. If, let's say I set this up without weights and my second period class has the default weights turned on, it won't let me select second period. I have to go into that gradebook, change the score method to remove the weights, and update the categories manually. But this can save you a little bit of time if you can select some of your other courses listed there. It will give them those categories, and then we just go in and check to make sure they're there. So it saves you a couple clicks. Okay, so we did post to family access. We did categories. The third thing that we have to do in each of our Skyward grade books is we want to check our grading scale. Your grading scale is how your grades are distributed based on percentages. And in your Skyward gradebook, it's under grade marks. So just next to the categories button, there's a grade marks button. When you open grade marks, you'll get this list of kind of random things here. We want to click add edit marks on the right-hand side. So we've clicked grade marks in our grade book, and then we're clicking add edit marks on the right-hand side, and that will show us our grading scale. This grading scale is what is applied to your grade book. So if this is not the grading scale that you are going to be using, we can just adjust the scores within here and click save. If you are, I should have told you this a little bit too. I skipped this part. On your categories, if you're going to use the Canvas gradebook, take a picture of your grading categories in Skyward here, because we're going to have to match them to Canvas. Same thing with your grading scale. Once you've updated your grading scale here, just take a picture of it, because we're going to match that to Canvas too. So those are the two things we need to match, is our Skyward categories and our Skyward grading scale. That will ensure that student grades look the same across both the grade books. Okay, any questions about the grading scale? We were asking, I think last year, about a district grading scale, and it seems to be building specific. So if you are new to the district or new to your building, check in with your administrators to see what the building grading scale is, because we found that there are some slight differences among the buildings for grading scales. Okay, so we actually finished all 3 steps of Skyward. So we posted to student and family access, we set up our categories, and we checked our grading scale. We have to do those 3 steps in each Skyward gradebook. So again, starting with the first gradebook and just working your way down the list of gradebooks you have is the easiest way. We recommend doing those steps in Skyward, and then we're going to match that to Canvas. You have a different gradebook for every class period in Skyward, but in Canvas, you may have fewer courses because you may teach the same class multiple periods. So those are all within one Canvas course. So the Skyward, we have to do each gradebook, and these are required steps for teachers to set up their gradebooks in Skyward.
And the one shortcut is, once you make sure that the posting to family access and everything is done in all of your classes, if you use the same grading method or scoring method, either weighted or not weighted, and set that up in all of your classes so it matches, then you can, with one click, push your categories to all of your classes. So that's the only one that you can do within one class. Everything else has to be done class by class.
Mm-hmm. So if you click this button and you get a red notification saying this gradebook uses a different scoring method, you can go into each of your gradebooks, change the scoring methods, and then this button will work to push those categories to your other gradebook. But it's tedious. It's, step by step going through each gradebook and just taking the time to set it up. But again, we only do it once at the beginning of the term, and then you're good for the rest of the semester or quarter. Okay, we're going to move into Canvas. So Canvas is optional for teachers to use, but it will allow you to create your assignments in Canvas, grade all of your assignments in Canvas, and push all those grades to Skyward. So once you've done those 3 steps in Skyward in each of your gradebooks, really Skyward is just something you look at to make sure grades are showing up, but everything else is done through the Canvas gradebook. So in each Canvas course, we're going to do 3 things. We're really going to do 2 things. We're going to create our categories, which are called assignment groups in Canvas. We're going to match our grading scale to Skyward. And then the third is really optional. So some teachers may have stuff in Canvas that they don't sync to Skyward. And so then we would recommend that they hide student totals in Canvas. So if you are a teacher that plans to exclusively use the Canvas gradebook for grading, and everything you grade in Canvas you want to show up in Skyward, you wouldn't necessarily hide student totals because you'd want students to be able to see an accurate grade in Canvas. But if you're a teacher where some stuff you put in Canvas you don't actually send to Skyward, then we would hide student totals so that kids see individual grades for assignments, but they don't see a total percentage. They're looking for that in Canvas. So it kind of depends on how you plan to use the Canvas gradebook.
And also it is possible to use Canvas for some things, but then like if you have presentations or something, you can enter those in Skyward. So you don't have to put everything in through Canvas to get it to Skyward. You can have some assignments that you directly put into Skyward and some in Canvas. That's up to you.
It just depends on what works best for you with Canvas. Yeah. And because it's optional, again, that's up to your professional discretion.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to first look at categories. So categories in Canvas are called assignment groups. And our Canvas assignment groups and our Skyward categories, they have to match exactly. So the names have to match exactly, including capitals, spelling, and spaces. So here's an example of some Canvas categories and the Skyward categories that match. So I'm matching just the Skyward description and creating that in Canvas. I'm also matching the weights if I'm using weighted categories, the ones in Skyward and the ones in Canvas. We recommend typing the whole name and not using the acronym, because if students are accessing these grades in Canvas and their families as observers, we want to make sure they know what this means. So DLY may not mean much to a student, but daily work would mean something to a student. So typing them out exactly. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So how we create the categories in Canvas is actually through assignments. So there's an assignments button in your course navigation bar, and that will pull up this page. Canvas will give you some default groups, and you probably only right now have one called assignment, but you may see some other default groups. We can just edit the names of these so that they match our Skyward categories. If you only see assignments and you want to add additional categories, we use the plus group button to add additional categories. So each of these headers are really our different categories that need to match Skyward exactly. Again, if you are not using categories and you just want everything to live kind of in one group, then we have to at least have the assignments category. And Canvas creates that for you as a default category, so you should already see it. So if you're not using additional categories, you would be done setting up your gradebook if you just see this assignments category listed here. So I'm going to just show you quickly on a course what this looks like. So here's an example course. I'm clicking assignments. From here, I have the assignments category already. If I'm using that in Skyward, I can leave that one. If I'm not using assignments, but I have a different category, I click the 3 dots and edit, and I can change that category name. For now, you can ignore these settings here. And once you've changed this, so if I have like daily work instead of assignments, I would change the name and click save. I now have that category. If I need to add additional ones, I click plus group and I can add my additional category here. So once you have all of your categories here in your Canvas course, if you are using weights, we have to also attach the weights to these because we want to make sure it matches exactly our Skyward gradebook. So if I'm using these 2 categories and I want to add weights to them, I'm going to click the 3 dots next to plus assignment. And I'm going to select assignment groups weight. I need to check this box, weight final grades based on assignment groups. And now I can attach weights to these categories. So I would type in the percentage that matches on Skyward. So again, snapping a picture of your Skyward categories is really helpful so that when you do this, you can match those exactly. Yeah, Susie, we can get to that if you remind me towards the end. Awesome. Okay, so my categories are set up in Canvas. They match Skyward exactly. That is the goal. And the slides walk you through also those steps for adding additional categories and editing those categories. We did that. Okay. Okay. Canvas will also, when you import assignments, like let's say you are collaborating with other teachers and you might import an assignment from another teacher, or you might copy an assignment from one of your courses to another course in Canvas, which is actually a really awesome feature of Canvas. When you do that, Canvas creates this category called imported assignments, and assignments will live in this category until you move them. So if you are having trouble syncing or you look at your categories and you notice this extra category, we just have to move these assignments into the correct category. So we just click these dots on the left and we can click and we can drag them to the correct category. So if you are ever confused by that, also we're happy to help you as your instructional tech coaches. But we want to make sure we move these into the right category. We're going to talk about now syncing. Well, actually, I might be getting ahead of myself. Let me see. Okay, we will talk about syncing in another slide. So I'm going to skip this one actually to talk about syncing. One thing also that's helpful in your gradebook is to turn on some of your filters. So I wanted to just show you just a couple things that would be really helpful. So if you're in your Canvas assignment or Canvas course, sorry, and I'm clicking grades in my Canvas course, every time you get a new Canvas course, we have to kind of set up our preferences for what we see and how we filter our gradebook. The very first thing that I always recommend is under this view button to uncheck unpublished assignments. So especially if you're importing content from previous courses, you might have a lot of unpublished assignments, and we can hide those by unchecking that unpublished assignment. Another thing that's helpful is under view filters, we can filter by module too. So this will actually let you search the different modules that you have within this course. So it kind of takes your giant gradebook and can make it smaller. So you're just looking at each module instead of the giant gradebook at once. Susie, you asked about importing grades. So you can actually just type directly into the cells in your gradebook to import a grade or to input a grade in the Canvas gradebook. We also have a feature called Speed Grader, which is your built-in kind of grading tool, and we can cover that at the end of the session. Okay, let's go back.
One of the other filters that I've had many people ask me about, which it's not showing up on Laura's view because she only has one section in this class, but if you have 3 different periods of the same class, you can filter by section, and then you can choose to only see one period at a time, or you can see all of the periods at the same time. So that also is helpful.
Okay. Okay, so we set up our categories. The other thing we're going to do is match our grading scale. So Canvas calls it a grading scale. Skyward calls it a grading scheme. I'm sorry, I got them mixed up. Canvas calls it a grading scheme. So what we need to do in our gradebook is go to settings. I'm sorry, in our Canvas course, we need to go to settings, and then we're looking for grading scheme, and we're enabling a course grading scheme. And then we need to set our grading scheme. So this enables the scheme, and then we need to click the blue hyperlink in order to set the grading scheme. What's going to pop up is a grading scheme, and it's the default Canvas grading scheme. So this is where taking a picture of your Skyward grading scheme is helpful, because you can click the pencil and then you can just edit the low range of your grading scheme. I recommend naming it so that next semester we can just import it into your second semester course. So some of these steps we set up now to then just be able to import into a future course. So you can change the name to something that makes sense to you, change the percentages if they don't match Skyward, and click save. And that gives you the grading scheme to match Skyward. Questions? No? Okay. Okay, hiding student totals. If you do not plan to post all assignments in Canvas and sync all assignments to Skyward, your Canvas and Skyward gradebooks may differ throughout the semester. If this is the case, we recommend hiding your student totals in your Canvas gradebook. Students will be able to see scores for individual assignments, but they won't see a total percentage and a letter grade in Canvas. They would look in Skyward for that. So how do we hide student totals? That is also on settings in your course navigation bar. So if you click settings in Canvas and scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a button for more options, which will show you more options in your settings. And one of the options that it shows you is to hide totals in student grade summaries. So that will hide the student seeing a total percentage in your Canvas course, and then click update course. There's a couple extra settings in here if you want to look through them and modify them for your own course based on your course. You can do that as well, but this is the one that we're really looking for, is to hide student totals, and clicking update course. Again, if you are teaching multiple content areas, we need to do these steps in each of our Canvas course. But if you're teaching, let's say, biology, and you have 3 classes of biology in one Canvas course, we're just doing this in that one Canvas course. So you're just doing it based on the Canvas courses you have. It's not like Skyward where we have to do it for every class period. Okay.
There's a question real fast in the chat. If you use quizzes in Canvas, do you need that category in Skyward?
That's a good, yeah, go ahead, Dawn.
Well, I was just going to say, quizzes, the tool in Canvas is different than quizzes, the category in Canvas. So if you have a category or group called quizzes, those need to match. But if you're using the quizzes tool, that's different, because that's just their tool that allows you to use multiple choice questions and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be a quiz as you grade it. So, so if you're referring to the quizzes tool, then no, you don't need that as a category in Skyward.
Canvas will create that category for you when you create a quiz, so you can just move any quizzes you create into the category you want and delete the extra one.
Yeah.
Awesome, good question. Okay, the last part of this is talking about syncing grades. So if you would like Canvas to create your assignments for you, you grade them in Canvas, and Canvas will push the assignment and the grades to Skyward. Canvas can do that. It's an awesome feature where you set up your Skyward gradebooks, but then you're really just looking at those gradebooks to make sure grades are posting. but everything is happening through Canvas. So you're creating the assignments, you're grading the assignments, and all that information gets pushed to Skyward. So we're going to talk about how to do that, how to sync to SIS, which is syncing to Skyward on each assignment, and then how to actually push those grades to Skyward. We'll talk about grade sync in the navigation bar, which is just a helpful tool, and then a reminder about any deleted assignments. So just some FYIs, Canvas grades are sent to Skyward. This is one-way communication. So Canvas creates the assignment and sends it to Skyward. I'm sorry, Canvas creates the assignment, it gets sent to Skyward, that assignment shows up in Skyward. Canvas overrides any updates in Skyward. So if you're planning to do everything from the Canvas gradebook, you're also updating grades and changing grades in the Canvas gradebook. Because if you make those changes in Skyward, Canvas will override it when you sync your grades. So you're really living out of one gradebook and you're just looking at Skyward to make sure that those grades are showing up. If you delete an assignment in Skyward, Canvas is still connected to that deleted assignment. So we just have to restore it. And this only happens once or twice for one or two teachers. But just if you see something missing in Skyward, there's a chance it was deleted and we can restore that. So what happens is when you create assignments in Canvas, and an assignment here, we're really talking about, it could be using the assignments tool, the discussions tool, the quizzes tool, any of those tools within Canvas. When we create an assignment for students to do, you will always see this sync to SIS setting. So we have two things we're looking at. I created an assignment. I'm looking at assignment groups. When I click that drop down, I'm going to see all of my Skyward categories I chose. So from here, I select the category I want it to go in from assignment group. And then I see sync to SIS. I check this box. What I'm saying is that I want this assignment to go to Skyward. It's not pushing it yet to Skyward, but I'm saying I'm setting up this assignment to sync. So the habit that you get into as you create assignments in Canvas is you choose the category it goes in and you check this box, sync to SIS. Okay, what that does is it changes this little icon to be a green check mark. That means I checked the box. So if you're ever unsure if you checked sync to SIS, I can click on assignment in my Canvas course. And if there's a green check mark, I already checked sync to SIS. If there's a black X, I didn't check sync to SIS. And if I want this assignment to go to Skyward, I just click the black X and it will check that setting for me. So if you're planning to push everything to Skyward, when you click on assignments, you should just see all green check marks. If you see any black X's, just click them and that tells Canvas you want that assignment to go to Skyward. Okay, so that's setting up the assignment to go. How do we actually push those grades to Skyward? From your gradebook, which is grades in your course navigation bar, we click actions and we click sync to SIS. So we're telling our Canvas gradebook, all of this stuff needs to go to Skyward. Okay, so actions, sync to SIS. Canvas will pull up this list of all of your assignments that are ready to go to Skyward. You can look at this list. If it looks great, you click post grades. Your grades are now going to Skyward. At the bottom of this list, you might scroll all the way down and see assignments that are grayed out that you can't check, and they're just like a light gray color. That means they're missing a due date. So assignments have to have a due date to sync, or they're a duplicate. So at some point you may have duplicated an assignment and a duplicate won't sync. So if you're ever unsure why things aren't syncing, again, your instructional tech coach is happy to go over that with you. But it's either they're missing a due date or they're a duplicate, and we can figure out what's going on. So it pulls up this list, I post grades, and those grades are now in Skyward. Let's see, did I put that on this one? I'm not sure which slide I put it on, but my kind of process as a classroom teacher was every time I updated grades, I synced them to Skyward. So I got in the habit of syncing my grades often. So if I graded a bunch of stuff, I synced it to Skyward. If I went in and modified a few student scores, I synced it to Skyward. Like I just got in the habit of every time I grade to sync, because you want to grade often. That will prevent you from having any major errors or getting to the end of the term and having problems with the sync, is what we want to avoid. So just syncing frequently is helpful. You could never sync too much, but if you do it like twice in a row back to back, the second one might not go through. But if you're just in the habit of syncing when you grade, then you're fine. Okay, this grade sync is in your navigation bar. If it's not, there's a little GIF here that walks you through how to get it into your navigation bar. But grade sync is a tool that's really helpful for you to know how to see if your grades are syncing or not. So what this looks like is grade sync would be here or somewhere in the upper section of your course navigation bar. And what it will show is it will show a history of your grade sync. So every time you clicked sync to SIS from your gradebook, it shows up here and it tells you if it was successful or not. This is the tool that your instructional tech coach will use to help you if you're not sure if your grades are syncing or if you have any problems. So history shows us if they're syncing. Here's an example of a history of grade syncs. Unfortunately, this teacher synced their grades effectively on January 13th because they got a green check mark. But every time they synced after that, it either failed or it completed, but with errors. So if you're the first time you sync, if you check this, we're looking for a green check mark under grade sync. If you see an exclamation mark at all, there's some error happening. You can click on the blue hyperlinked word to see what the error is. And most of the errors are fixable. They're just minor problems, like an assignment's missing a due date, or there's a category problem. Like they're things that we can fix. We have this resource right here that will actually walks you through like grade syncs and what's happening and why they might not be working. If that feels overwhelming for you too, reach out to your instructional tech coach. We're happy to take a look at it and figure out what's going on. My rule for my teachers is like Canvas related things. If you spend more than like 15 minutes trying to troubleshoot something, just send me an email, because I don't want you wasting hours of time getting frustrated when most things are a quick fix that we can figure out in a few minutes. Okay, so we're looking for green check marks. That's successful. There's also this button under utilities in GradeSync that's remaster grade passback. This button is really used for us as instructional tech coaches to reset your sync. And that happens after like a Skyward outage, or you drastically change your categories after syncing already. Then we want to just repush everything to Skyward. So don't worry about this button. This is really only used in a few cases. You are syncing your grades from the grade book, but this is here. So if you hear about it, it's just a tool that we can use to make sure your grades are getting to Skyward if there's any major changes. Okay, according to your contract, your Skyward grades need to be up to date every 2 weeks. We recommend just syncing from Canvas to Skyward more frequently if you plan to sync grades, because then your grades are always up to date as you grade things in Canvas, and those go to Skyward. The syncing is not always instantaneous, but it's usually fast. So you should see them within a minute or so in Skyward, except at the end of the grading period. So we recommend sync frequently, because if you wait till the end of the quarter or semester and then you are syncing all of your grades, that's going to take longer because more people are syncing at that time. And any last minute changes, let's say it's the last day of the quarter and kids are coming to you with late work that you're accepting and putting in the grade book. If you're about to post your grades for the quarter or the semester, we recommend putting those last minute changes in Canvas and Skyward, because it's not guaranteed that if you sync, they'll show up if you need to post grades in the next half hour on Skyward. So as long as you're syncing frequently, you shouldn't run into any problems with that sync. Okay, if you ever are concerned that an assignment was deleted, we can restore that in Skyward. Don't panic, just reach out to your coach and we're happy to help you with that. But there is an option in Skyward to restore deleted assignments. So if you are planning to sync all your grades, just live out of the Canvas gradebook. Don't make a bunch of changes in the Skyward gradebook and you'll be fine. But if you accidentally delete something, we can always recover it. That's it. That was a lot of information. The slides hopefully are a tool you can use to go through and go through each of your grade books. But if you get stuck or have questions along the way, these are your instructional tech coaches based on school. So please reach out, and we're happy to help you with this, because we've been through it and we know how to problem solve. Okay, questions, comments, concerns?